there, this is Jacques from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of This Week in Magic the Gathering. And this week, as always, we'll be looking at the results of the tournaments over the weekend, focusing on the Star City Games Open, of course, which was now the second week of the new standard. We're starting to see the format shape up a little bit, but next week's going to be the big week when the Pro Tour actually occurs, and I think we'll see some major changes. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the new sealed format registration process. So let's get going. So this weekend in Atlanta, Star City Games held their standard open, and we got to really see the format start to come together a little bit. And first off, congratulations to Jacob Lively, who won the tournament playing Green, White, and Megamorph. We'll take a look at his deck list in just a moment. But you can look here at the top 8. Megamorph is starting to kind of take over along with Jeskai Black. So you had a Green-White Megamorph match in the final round. And then, of course, you had a couple Jeskai Black decks that made it. There was a Bant Megamorph, which was similar, just a little different, and then another Green-White Megamorph. There was a Jeskai Dragons that did make the top 8, and then another Jeskai Black. Right out of the top 8, there was a 5-color control, but one thing you'll notice compared to the previous week, there's a lot less of the 5-color decks, and the Bring to Light decks kind of disappeared. There was a little bit of success with Bring to Light the previous week. However, it's a very difficult deck to pilot, and don't know if it's going to be as quick and competitive as some of the other decks. As far as Abzan goes, you notice there isn't really a whole lot of just straight Abzan out here, at least in the top of the tournament. There was still Abzan aggro. Abzan control really kind of felt like it completely fell off. But there was a little bit of Abzan aggro, and there was some players that had some success with that. Atarka Red, which also did very well the previous week, was also around, but not as successful as it was the previous tournament. So, very interesting results there. Let's take a look at the winning deck list and kind of what you expect from Green-White Megamorph. There's nothing too exciting here or new or surprising, but I do like the fact, of course, you got your Hanger Backwalkers, your Death Mist Raptors, your Den Protectors, 4 of all those. But I like that cards like Wingmate Rock and Warden of the First Tree are now starting to get a little bit of the spotlight post-rotation. I think that's pretty cool. Warden of the First Tree saw just very little fringe play prior to rotation. Now it's a key part of the winning deck. Wingmate Rock was another one that never really quite lived up to expectations. Saw some fringe play, but here it is being a big chunk of this deck. We got Nissa, of course, as the main Planeswalker that helps you get more force into play, but then on top of that you have 4 Gideons that are allowing you to get extra allies into play, get 2/2 creatures. Gideon was huge. In fact, Gideon has seen more play than Jace at this point, it looks like. However, Jace is still doing very strong, so don't worry about Jace, as we'll see in another deck list in just a moment. But there were a lot of Gideons floating around this tournament, a lot of 4-ofs of this particular card. So yeah, there's the rest of the deck list. I'll let you kind of glance at this quickly. But I also like the sideboard couple Evolutionary Leaps, another card that I feel like is getting a little more spotlight than it didn't see before. Archangel Tides is another one, so that's pretty cool. Let's take a look at the Jeskai Black deck list, and this particular one was piloted by David Mathis, came in 4th place, and again, you got your Hanger Backwalkers, but from that point, it's a very different deck. Here we're playing 4 Jaces, but we're still playing 4 Gideons, so Gideon, from a finance speculation point of view, could be very, very strong. Now, more Gideons are going to be open than Jaces just because of the fact that Battle for Zendikar is going to be around longer before the next set comes out. Magic Origins had a shorter window, so there'll be more time to draft it in open packs. And on top of that, people are trying to get their full art basics and want to play the Expedition Lottery. So long-term value, Jace is probably going to be more valuable than Gideon, but I think Gideon's going to have a pretty nice price tag as well, so keep an eye on that card. It's seeing tons of play. So another important card of this deck, Silk Wrap and Crackling Doom play huge roles in the deck. There's also Ojutai's Command, which is nice to see that getting more and more play. So pretty cool stuff altogether. I think the biggest component of this deck, which I thought actually saw it on camera win some games was the one of Dragon Master Outcast. So this card, even when it came out in World Wake, didn't really do much from a competitive standpoint. But this deck did a little bit. This card did a little bit of work in this deck this weekend. So keep an eye out for Dragon Master Outcast. Wouldn't be surprised to see this become a 2 of or 3 of in some versions of this deck. Take a quick look at the 5-color control deck. Ali Eldrazi was playing this deck. The previous week he was playing the Eldrazi deck. That deck kind of fell off the radar as well this particular week. So what did he turn to? 5-color build. Now the mana bases are tough. It takes a very experienced player, I think, to really pilot this deck well, and even then sometimes you run into a situation that's awkward. The interesting part about this format is when you get a fetch land, a Khan's fetch land, which is, of course, allied colors, you really can't search for the common enemy color of those 2 colors. You can either search for the new dual land from Battle for Zendikar, or of course you can search for the basic land, but you really can't get that one color that's in between them, which can be very awkward at times. So don't think of it like just because we have fetch lands that it's going to be like Modern is or Legacy, where basically you can just pull any color you want anytime. This is much more difficult and sometimes leads to a little bit of awkwardness. You do have to really think about your keeps and your mulligans more with this type of deck. So if you are going to net deck something like this to play, it is a fun deck, but at the same time, keep in mind it's going to take a little practice to get that down as far as your mana base. And as far as mana bases go, they're still in flux. I think we've seen a step forward from the previous week, but there's going to be more evolution in these because they are not perfect right now. And I think that's why we're seeing 2-color decks really taking down tournaments as opposed to these 5-color decks that are seeing a little bit of a push. 4-color decks are doing okay, as you can see with Jeskai Black. But again, there's games that they kind of stall out too, so you just want to keep that in mind when you're choosing your decks. Last deck I want to spotlight, just because it was something a little different, is Green-Black Aristocrats. And this particular version of it came in 28th place, piloted by Steven Sloan. And this has Liliana, there's 3 copies of her, focuses around Zulaport Cutthroat, and because of the Aristocrats deck that was popular around the Return to Ravnica time, that's where it gets its name from, is it does similar things where you sacrifice creatures to drain life, kind of like a Blood Artist effect that you get from Zulaport Cutthroat. So because of the similarities, that's where it kind of gets its name from. I think it's a fun deck. It's an interesting deck. It's probably the closest to the event deck that they put out as far as the way it works. Obviously, the cards are at least a little different, although you see some similarities to what you saw in the event deck. But this is a much more tight, polished version of it. So interesting. It's a little bit simpler to play because it's only 2 colors, and I don't know, this could be something that with a little bit of tweak could make it into the top tier. So I just wanted to kind of point it out and take a quick look at it. All right, so those were the results from this weekend. Looking forward to next weekend at the Pro Tour. Of course, we'll have a new episode next week. We'll talk about what was played at the Pro Tour, how that's affecting the metagame, and of course the market as well. Now let's move on to the new sealed deck procedures. So this came out a few days ago from Wizards of the Coast, and I'll leave a link in the comments below so you can take a closer look at the article. But this was actually pretty exciting for me, and this is specifically talking about sealed pool procedures for registering decks in GPs, which is your more competitive sealed pool environment. Now, when you do your Friday Night Magic or you're doing your pre-release or something like that, different stores or different event organizers will do different things. So at this point, this isn't a sanctioned you have to do it this way or anything like that. This more focuses on the competitive tournament scene. Now, I have gone to some pre-releases in the past where they treat deck registration like a competitive tournament. Not really sure why, other than they may have had some issues in the past with players not being completely honest. But that's the anomaly. Usually it's a much more casual registration process in those type of events. But let's talk about the more competitive events and how they are changing. So in the past, you'd go ahead and open your 6-packs. You'd go ahead and pass those cards to another player that was sitting somewhere in the vicinity of you. they would give you a different card pool. You would then register that pool, and then you would pass again to somebody else, and you would get usually a third card pool. Sometimes they try to mix it up and pass back and stuff, but typically you would basically be seeing 3 card pools while you're doing this. Here is the issue with the old format, and this actually happened to me a few years back. The worst thing that can happen in Magic, I think, is you sit down and you crack booster packs, you get to this huge pull, and then you just have to give it away and pass it away, and it's just a huge feel bad, and a lot of times results in people just dropping out of tournaments after they open the booster packs. This happened in the first Modern Masters Grand Prix quite a bit when they were doing the Grand Prix Vegas, and people were looking for those Tarmogoyfs. People opened foil Tarmogoyfs and just dropped the tournament so they didn't have to pass them away, and they didn't play in the tournament, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense for what Magic is. It's a game. Why do you want people to be in a situation where they have to decide whether to keep a card that's worth hundreds of dollars or just not play in the Grand Prix? That just doesn't seem right. It affected me a few years back. I was playing in a Pro Tour qualifier, and it was sealed for Innistrad. I opened a Liliana the Veil, which at the time was worth probably like $20-$30, which was pretty significant. Now, of course, it's a $100 card, and I had to pass it away, and I did, So, and here's what's weird about this phenomenon. If I open a pack and I get this amazing card, this amazing pull, and then I have to pass it away, it's a huge feel bad. When you get past that Liliana or you get past that Tarmogoyf, it's cool, but is it as exciting as when you opened it? I mean, it's pretty awesome to be like, hey, I got past this, and this is now my card, and it's worth X amount of money, or it's something I want to play with or put in a deck. But it's just not the same thrill as opening the pack. So the person that gets the feel bad is much worse than the kind of upside of the person that gets past this card, was always my feeling on this. So they've changed that, and you're going to actually keep the cards you open, which I think is brilliant. I don't know why they didn't do this a long time ago, especially after the first Modern Masters GP, where this really kind of reared up. And in the past, there have been players that have had like controversies, not professional players necessarily, but controversies over dropping in tournaments. But with that Modern Masters tournament, they basically said beforehand, this is okay. If you open a card and you want to jump out, jump out. So anyway, here's basically what will happen. Each player gets their 6 booster packs, and of course you're sitting at a table across from somebody else. So on one side of the table, boosters for player A will be opened by player A. Player B will observe player A opening their boosters, make sure there's nothing weird going on, confirm that what they get is their contents, and then they'll switch. B opens their boosters, A watches, confirms what they get, and then they're going to switch card pools to register them. So A and B registers each other's card pools, and then they're going to pass back, and they're going to keep their original card pools that they open. I think that is so much better. It's A, simpler and quicker, I'm sure, and B, it just takes away that feel bad and that awkwardness of, I'm going to have to drop a tournament now because I really need this card. Why did I even come out here to play? Hopefully there's side events, but in some cases there's not. So I think this is pretty awesome, and good move. Surprised it didn't happen years ago, quite honestly, but pretty cool. And like I said, I'll leave a link so you can look at the article in more detail. So having said that, that is this week in Magic the Gathering. Pretty slow week. I mean, other than the new meta game and this new ruling, not a whole lot has been going on, but next week will be a big week with the Pro Tour. So until then, as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a good day. Hey, thanks as always for watching. These videos are made possible by viewers just like you through Patreon. Please check out our Patreon page by clicking on the top right. Down below, we have more links to quality Magic the Gathering content. And if you're interested in seeing trading cards open that aren't Magic the Gathering, check out the link to our trading card channel, Heroes and Legends Trading Cards. Thanks and have a great day.